MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence, MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune. India brings together the world's top tech women influencers leading the exponential technology domain and rising awareness on trending hot topics such as blockchain technology, data science, AI and ML, cybersecurity, cloud computing, metaverse, fintech, robotics, digital transformation and many more.
Join the second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology from 5th to 8th March 2022. Proudly organized by MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence India. Visit mitfuturesskills.org/WFET or call on 7066995599. Transform yourself into a winning professional.
A very good evening to one and all present here. This is Suruchi Bhatt, your host for the session. On behalf of MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence, MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune, it is my pleasure to welcome all the esteemed guests and enthusiastic participants from all parts of the globe. This is the second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology, the platform to get inspired, informed, and guided by global technology leaders. At the outset, let me welcome you to our lovely keynote speaker for the evening, Ms. Shamane, Chief Growth Officer, Sekuro, Australia, author, TEDx speaker, and global cybersecurity influencer. Thank you so much for joining us today. MIT Art, Design and Technology believes in starting every journey of knowledge by seeking blessings from Goddess Saraswati. May I request you to join your hands to Saraswati Vandana, please? The MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence, under the guidance of MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune, is proud to bring on one platform, women who are world motivators in technology. The second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology is an attempt to salute women who influence and motivate and create awareness on the power of emerging technologies and career growth. Cybersecurity specialists work for most big and small financial institutions, IT firms, government agencies, and defense organizations. The digital world is ever expanding, and hack attacks can sometimes devolve into fully fledged cyber warfare. On the virtual battlefield, they are the commanders capable of leading battles in any part of the globe. The most important thing is to have a computer close by. Sounds dangerous, but exciting. How is the day of cybersecurity expert really? Let us hear of it from Ms. Shamane, Chief Growth Officer, Sekuro, Australia, author, TEDx speaker, and global cybersecurity influencer. May I please request her AV?
Ms. Shamane Tan is an author and Chief Growth Officer of Sekuro. She has impacted countless people collaborating with global industry leaders as she continues to build a community and grow the ecosystem. She has sought to find out the key messages of top industry leaders from around the world to share their stories and learnings with her audience. Shamane is also a TEDx speaker, named by IFSEC as the Global Top 20 Influencer for Cybersecurity Professionals category and the 2020 winner of the highly commended ASWN Award for the One-to-One Watch. She is a huge advocate and business champion for cyber risk professionals and actively encourages people to look for new ways to take a step forward. Cyber Media and the Day After is her latest book released by publishers Wiley in the US Shameen series Coffee with C-Suit. It is widely popular where she shares stories from her conversations with renowned industry leaders from the former US President Obama's first Chief Information Security Officer to ex-CBI Chief NASA agent, the world's very first Chief Security Officer, and many more. Team MIT Center for Future Excellence, MIT HD University, is honored to have Ms. Shameen Chan with us today for the second International Virtual Summit on Women's Frontier in Exponential Technology.
Thank you very much for sparing your valuable time with us today. The session will be all yours now.
Hi everyone, my name is Shamane Tan, and today I'll be sharing with you what a modern day cyber leader looks like in today's landscape. Now, this talk is going to be a really different one. It's not going to be a formal presentation or anything like that. I am just going to be sharing with you my experiences, my observation, and hopefully being able to empower you with an idea of what cybersecurity looks like, what the landscape looks like, and how a career can look like for you as well, and the different ways that you can get involved. So pretty much it's like a fireside chat. It's going to be informal and, make yourself feel comfortable. Grab a coffee or even your breakfast, your brunch, your dinner, whichever time zone you are at, and just make yourself comfortable. Okay. So with that, the modern day cyber leader. Now, I was doing research for a number of years and published my first book, which is called the Cyber Risk Leaders. And in one of the chapters, I looked at actually the rise of the CISOs. When I look at the different chief information security officers that we have in the industry, not all of them are equal, right? Because they have different responsibilities. And, if you're going to start right at the top, okay, if you look at the CISOs itself, a lot of them actually came from technology background. They came from a network or infrastructure. I mean, if you unwind 20 years ago, the title of a chief information security officer, that's not even common. It only came about more recently. And back then, it was probably just a head of information technology security or IT manager or head of infrastructure that's looking after security, right? You don't have a dedicated person looking after security. And if you fast forward right now, you see that the CISO titles are a lot more common. Many of them are actually at the executive table seats. They have also more airtime these days in front of the board directors. Not many of them manage to make it into the boardroom because sometimes they have to go through their CIOs. But there is an increasing awareness and understanding of the importance of the CISO role. So if you look at them, many of them came from engineering backgrounds as well. And I mentioned earlier infrastructure. But what you see, something that's interesting is a lot of them are also now coming from the background of protective security. And when you look at security now, you're not just thinking about IT or information security, but you also look at physical security, right? And that is where there are protective security managers that have actually stepped up to take up the wider umbrella, which is a chief security officer, looking after both the physical security and the IT or information security. So this is just laying out the landscape of what the role and responsibilities and the backgrounds of the security heads look like right at the very top. Now, there's another thing where we, if we were to study the role of the Chief Information Security Officers, I mentioned a lot of them came from tech backgrounds, right? So they come from an IT background and they are more used to talking technology. They do techie talks. They like to go down into the controls and the tools, but that's more of your IT CISOs. But we see an evolution also and a shift right now where there are more CISOs that are expected to take on the role of a business CISO. And what that means is that if you look at that, traditionally, cybersecurity function would aim at, having a good understanding of the business, and they're happy with that. But now, if you look at the role of in security, right, it's essential that you are influential. You are speaking for the business, right? And you look at working with the business to solve their problems across the entire company. So it is now also a business role because it's focusing on business risk, business outcomes, and cybersecurity is part of that. And as cybersecurity evolves, where it has now a more critical role to play in the world of the business, beyond your technology background and experience, there are 3 C's that you will need to have in order to flourish in this space. So can anyone have a guess? What does the first C stand for? Any takers? All right, I will get to that in a bit. Now, how did I came about with the 3 C's? So I'll start off first with the recent book that I just published together with my co-author, Dan Lawman. So he is the former Chief Security Officer of the state of Michigan and also formerly from NSA, which is a National Security Agency. So both he and I came together and we studied a lot of true cyber emergency stories and what leaders did across the different industries when they are in the midst of cyber crisis and a cyber attack. And that is really key. Beyond that, it's not so much about what technology they have to use or tools. It's actually a lot more about how they are able to think out of the box. Are they prepared in the event of an attack? And what do they do? How do they respond? And if you study the techniques and approaches and best practices, there are a lot of lessons you can learn from it on what works and what do not work. So as part of the research, I interviewed the likes of Interpol, ex-FBIs, even the former chief security officer at NASA, who, their role is to launch rockets into space. I spoke to even the former chief security officer of President Obama and really took time to peel away the layers of what is required of a leader in times of crisis. And you'll realize that there are 3 parts to responding to a cyber attack. And that's also how Dan and I went about to divide the book into 3 segments. So it's really important to study what the leader does before an attack happens, right? How do the leader go about to prepare an organization? And then once the attack actually do happen and you're in the midst of a crisis, the power shuts down, what do you do? That is very critical, right? Because your response in that time is essential to whether the company is going to flourish, to come back from it, or are they going to be, to entirely disappear from the scenes? And finally, on the third side of the segment is what happens after the dust settles. Because when there is a crisis, you hear about it on the news a lot. It's on the headlines. Everybody's talking about it. They're monitoring the news every day. But months later, when the news dies down and nobody's talking about it anymore, you don't hear much about the company. But what is the business doing after the crisis? They might be doing really well. Nobody knows. Or they might not even be on the scene around anymore. Again, nobody knows, right? And that's crucial is what do you do after the crisis? How do you respond from it? How do you bounce back? So all these are important. And it's also important to see what traits the leaders have. So in all of that, what is key is communication. So that's why I put C, the first C is communication. It's extremely crucial that a cyber leader has great communication skills. And maybe what I will do to help you is also share a bit about some of the extracts from the Cyber Mayday book. So what I did was I worked together with a researcher that's really well known in Singapore, where he was heading up the media research for MINDEF, which is a Singapore Defence Agency, military agency. And what he did was he studied also about the medical protocols, which is they look at how the doctors would break bad news to patients, people with terminal diseases, right? And then he looked at that. He did this research together with a few other co-researchers, and they look at how, if they compare with a different industry, which is the aviation industry, where there were missing airlines, how are they communicating to the families of the losses, right? And he drew parallels to that framework that came out from the medical sector and looked at how they can improve, crisis communications for the aviation sector and what was missing. And then I looked at what he talked about, which is a console framework, and I studied that, and I was like, okay, there's a lot that we can learn in the cybersecurity sector as well across different industry, and maybe what are we doing well, what we are not doing well, what we can do better, right? And if you look at console, it's a framework. It's not a technology framework, but it's a communication crisis framework. And just a few key things that I want to highlight here is in the midst of crisis, what's extremely important is that you have to be coherent. You have to be clear in your communication. You see, it's not really about giving specific information about all the technology things that's happened wrongly, that broke down, or the breaches. Yes, you have to give a clear report about what happened, but when you're communicating that out externally or internally or to your customers, you have to be clear and make sure there's not information overload or information underload as well, because if there's ambiguity, people are going to be second guessing and filling the information vacuum with their own misassumptions, which is not what you want happening. And when there's a crisis, what is important to display good leadership as well. So you have to show that the leadership is there to support, provide options where people can reach out and get further assistance as well. Empathy is key. So you might be a really good leader where you're able to communicate well in crisis, but if there's no empathy, there's no human connection, people are not going to relate to you, and there will be a disconnect. So this is just an example of what kind of messaging, how does the messaging can look like, how does it look like. The other components is, the nuance, make sure you understand the audience, right? Who are you speaking to, how technical they are, what kind of cultural background they come from, because all that will come into play. Make sure your message is oriented to them, and it's also ongoing, right? You don't just communicate once and that's it. You have to give consistent communication. So if you look at that, right, being a modern day cyber leader in time of crisis is so much more than just having a good tech background. It's more about being able to speak the language of the business. You realize it's also more about being a business leader. The second C that I would like to bring your attention to is curiosity. So it's so important that as a leader, you have to also be curious. We never know it all, because we are in a landscape that keeps changing. It's such at a fast pace as well, that's really hard for leaders to keep up. So it's important that, any new security leaders joining the field, that they are constantly curious. There was also, as part of the research I did for Cyber May Day, we found out some common excuses that the business give as to why best practices are not implemented. And it's because there is this best practice apathy within the organizations these days. And if you talk about why they are not doing certain things, these are some of the reasons. They are saying we do not have time. The business didn't understand why it was necessary in the first place, why we should be implementing certain tools, for example, or changing our processes. The business is saying we can't afford it. We just don't have enough money for it. Or they are saying that, they maybe don't even want to look at security because they were afraid of what they might discover. Okay, and that's a really poor excuse. you will find that there will be stakeholders who will tell you that, it's just too hard. It's just too hard to get this done. So we don't want to do anything at all. Or they might tell you, we tried this before, but it didn't work. So why should we try again? So there's a lot of reasons that they can give you. And it's really hard sometimes to overcome those objections. At the end of the day, you'll realize that it really just boils down to, when you are working in an organization and you're in charge of security, you are facing things like the lack of time. You also have to look at what's the current culture. Maybe there are things within the culture you have to change or influence. There is not enough budget, what are the risks, right? Maybe there's a lot of other higher priority risk at the moment. Who are your allies, right? You need to maybe look at getting more allies in a company, and what kind of environment you are in. So many factors come in, and you have to use the element of curiosity to come in to really get down to the root of the matter, to take the journey with your business stakeholders as well, and understand, what are the real issues and how you can work with them and come to a common solution, right? So having that curious mindset to really dig deep is essential of a cyber leader. It's not just about coming in to say this have to be done this way, or telling the business, no, you can't do this because it's not going to be secured. That actually does contribute to the stereotype that people have of security leaders, because they think that security people are all about saying no and objecting to you, but not really. If you do it right and if you do it well, you can position security as a platform where, security is all about, being able to partner together with your business stakeholders, and together you come to a solution that is safe and secure, but a solution that works well. Because at the end of the day, you want the business to grow at a fast pace, which is what the business wants, but also to grow securely. And the longevity of the business is important, right? You want it to be sustainable. You want the value preservation to be there, and that's where and that is the role of the security leader, to show that you can be their partner. Okay, now the last C. So we talk about communications, curiosity, and now the third C is about being consistent, to think ahead all of the time. I talked about before in some of my presentations that the Netflix show, The Queen's Gambit. I don't know how many of you have seen that show, but it's really interesting if you think about chess. Playing chess. If you are a mastermind at chess, you can play really well because you have all the skills, all the moves. You can sometimes even predict your opponent's moves, right? And in the world of cybersecurity, we want to be also at the top of our game. It's really hard to predict the moves of our attackers, but what you can do is prepare yourself so that you have the best skill possible to face your opponent when the game starts, right? And you want to also be able to put your best game forward. And that's where training is important, and that's where investing in awareness sessions, upskilling yourself, and also making use of whether is it your partners that you can be working with, or the internal resources that you have. There are many different ways that you can go about to make sure that you're really well prepared, not just yourself, but your security function and also the business. But you have to keep making sure that you are always thinking ahead. So that is really crucial. And we talk about people, process, and technology. So earlier I mentioned about leveraging of your people, your internal resources, and also your external. You're working with your third-party providers or your vendors. They can be a really good source of intel that you can lean on, because they have a wide team of people to support you as well. And if you look at your processes, are you having the right oversight over them? Are you looking at improving your processes, because they need to constantly be tested and improved? And also about technology, right? How can you be using your technology to help you have foresight about what is to come, using maybe threat intelligence tool, looking at your logs, looking at your SIEM, and making sense of all this data that you have. So there is it's a holistic ecosystem of people, process, and technology. Now, when people think cybersecurity, there are many who still think of them as people wearing their hoodies, looking really mysterious, behind their laptops, typing away, coding away. Now, that's not really the image of a modern day cyber leader anymore. What you actually might not suspect, they actually look really ordinary. They are just the average people like you and me. And the modern day cyber leaders are made out of very diverse groups of people from different backgrounds. Some of them comes from the forensic side of things. Some are psychologists, some are mathematicians, auditors. Cyber is one of the most diverse careers. There are risk assessors. We even have people looking at threat intelligence monitoring, cloud security, penetration testers, the ethical hackers, or even security advisors or auditors. Even people who are in the awareness space where they look at building culture and implementing change, right? So really the world of modern day cyber leaders look very different today. And there is a lot of diversity. People are embracing people from different backgrounds because everyone can contribute to this ecosystem. I would only say that perhaps the imposter syndrome is what would hold a lot more people back, because they are wondering, if I am good enough to be in this space. And especially when you're working with very brilliant people, that questions does come a lot to anyone, including myself. But if you take me as an example, right, I would say that I love reimagining possibilities, and I'm one example of someone who has shown what you can achieve in the world of cyber, and it looks very different from a stereotypical cyber position. So over the years, I've progressed from being a computer engineering student all the way through to working with executives, and then being an executive advisor, working with the CIOs, Chief Information Security Officers, on their strategies, on their roadmaps, helping them bridge their gaps with the business. And then also now, ending up writing a few books, winning awards, and even giving a TEDx talk about the imposter syndrome as well. So there's a lot you can do. I would just encourage those who are listening in today that really, don't settle for what you think is a norm, because you can push your boundaries. You can be creative as a modern day cyber leader. So I hope that really encouraged you. And if you have any questions, you feel free to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn or even continue the conversation. Or if you want to check out the books that I've written as well, Cyber Risk Leaders, which is a collection of more than 70 over CXOs' insights and experience about how they navigate the corporate challenge, and even leadership tips, right, from different industry sectors around the world. Cyber Risk Leaders is a really good one. And the recent publication, which is Cyber Mayday, that's more focused on cyber crisis. How do you help your organization prepare, respond, react, and also recover from any cyber crisis? So check them out. The QR code, I think, is there for the Cyber Risk Leaders. And you can find the books on Amazon as well. And thank you so much for having me. I hope today's session was helpful for you. And you can message me directly on LinkedIn if you have other questions moving forward. Enjoy the rest of the presentations, and I'll see you guys around. Do take care of yourself in the meantime.
Thank you, ma'am. That was an absolutely mind-blowing session. 3 C's of cybersecurity. I'm sure everyone has noted it well, and they will remember this is one of the topmost trending professions of today, and they should definitely go and explore. Even the book that you have just recently published, we got very good response on the same. We have shared it with our community, Cyber Mayday and the day after, which gives an absolutely amazing insight into how leaders deal with emergency and how they've created the crisis game plan for future situations. It's more interesting, not just because of the techniques that they use, but also the way they think on their toes and out of the box. to deal with the sudden crisis. So definitely it is something to look for, something to read. I will recommend that book. Um, you rightly have pointed out that there are very few dedicated persons taking care of cybersecurity in an organization. Whatever could be the reason, as you have stated, cybersecurity experts are always in demand. And as we have seen that since COVID, at least we have seen that the new normal is we are always online. Everyone is always online. According to reports, billions of dollars are lost each year as a result of this kind of cyber crime, which keeps on happening because people are 24 by 7 online, using every service, trying to get their work done also online. There's definitely an urgent need for professionals with technical skills and understanding to combat this persistent and malicious cyber attack. And because of the demand is far outpacing the supply in cybersecurity sector, the cyber attacks aren't going away anytime soon. And so job security also in this sector is growing. And to stay ahead of the curve and excel in your career, whether it is cybersecurity or any other technology, whether it is cloud, AI, you should definitely start thinking about developing skills and making your career future proof and to keep up with the dynamic economy. MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence is the flagship initiative of MIT Art, Design and Technology University. It is solely dedicated to reshape the lives of students and working professionals via excellence and future exponential technologies, and to have a strong impact in tomorrow's economy. Influencers like you give us this kind of an encouragement where we are able to reach this kind of information till people, till career aspirants. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again. And we would love to listen to you once again and host you here. Thank you so much. Over to you, Suruchi.
Thank you so much, ma'am. A bigger thank you to our keynote speaker. Your points upon prep before attacks, response, and the deals that work in the one's favor at the moment was some that we will be taking back home. Their roles and responsibilities in the society will especially stay with us. Thank you once again for joining us today. Events like these are possible only due to the constant support and encouragement from Honorable Professor Dr. Mangesh Karat sir, Executive President and Vice Chancellor, MIT ADT University. His blessings make such sessions eventful. A big thank you to our mentors, Dr. Anant Chakradev sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Mahesh Chopre sir, Registrar, MIT ADT University, for their constant cooperation and motivation in such events. I extend my sincere appreciation to all the deans, directors, HOIs, and HODs at MIT ADT University. Your support encourages us to progress and flourish. I am indebted to our ecosystem partners who supported and guided us throughout the International Virtual Summit organization. A huge thank you to our knowledge partners, University at Buffalo, Blockchain Think Lab, California Science and Technology University, Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship, and Natalie EV Consulting. Thank you to our technology partners, Asset Rush, Kaleido, Big ID, Paymonk, Innovise, Stezi, Settlement, Sekuro, Robotex India, and Radicat. A big thank you to our education partners who cooperate and motivate with us in all the courses and events. Microsoft, Salesforce, Atos, SAP, EduPeer, AI Beehive, CloudDAC, and Skills Factory. Thank you to our community partners, OVASC Foundation, Women in Cybersecurity and Privacy, and InfoSec Girls, India Blockchain Forum, Global Blockchain Business Council, Women in Blockchain Talks, and MKAI. Our inspiration is our innovation partner, AIC MIT ADT Incubator Forum, and Cerebrus Park Innovations LLP. Thank you to our certification partner, True Scholar, and thank you to our digital marketing partner, Brand Niti, Integrated Strategic Advertising and Media Agency. Finally, I'd like to thank the audience from the bottom of my heart who took out their precious time and joined us today. I request you to kindly share your valuable feedback. The link is shared in the chat box. Today was a day full of knowledge, experiences, insightful deliberations, and motivation. We will be continuing this journey tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. Please note the insightful sessions that are lined up for tomorrow. You may see them on the screen, or you can visit us on www.mitfutureskills.org/WFET, the detailed schedule of the summit. Let us meet once again using the very same link tomorrow for the session. How does EQ determine entrepreneurial success? By Ms. Natalie Evie, founder, Natalie Evie Consulting, former executive director, Goldman Sachs. I declare today's session over. See you again tomorrow. Till then, please be safe, keep learning, keep motivated. We hope you have a great evening.